Hi guys, how are you? Everything's fine? Yes? So let's get going. Let's finish lesson 5. Let's go. Let me open the stuff here for you. All right. So when we saw each other for the last time, we finished page 42. We did the listening and the discussions. And now we're going to page 42 for vocabulary, and we're going to correct the exercises, all right? So the first exercise is about vocabulary mostly. Here we have uh, a bunch of expressions that are, in this case here, related to war, before, after, or something that can be used in both situations. So that's that's the context you are going to be using this vocabulary for this exercise. Okay, remember that words in different contexts can mean very different things. One tip that is here for you is this the suffix ci that is used to form nouns from adjectives. So when you have an adjective ending with t, te, tic, or nt, to form a noun, it will get this suffix ci. One that I think is you are very acquainted with is fluent and fluency. So you are fluent in English. Fluent in this case is an adjective. Fluency in a second language is very good for your career. So fluency in this case is a noun. That's not important for you as a whole because, like we always said, this is a detail for etymologists. But it's good for acquiring new vocabulary, or when you are reading a text and you find a word you don't know. For example, let's say you don't know the word secrecy, but you know the word secret, and secret is a noun, it's an adjective. So, okay, so secrecy, secret, finishes with T, secrecy, CI. So it's a noun related to the adjective secrets. Do you get me? I hope you get me. Okay, I think I'm not over explaining things. So let's go. We have here a bunch of words which we are going to classify, remember, within this context of war. So some will be more used or more adequate to be used before war, some after, and some are in the between. So they can be used before, after, or during, or in different contexts related to this state of affairs, okay? So let's get started. First is allies. One thing I always forget to tell you, all this vocabulary, guys, is on Cyber Audio. You go to Cyberfisk, download it, and then you can listen and get the pronunciation if you have any doubts, okay? So allies, they are to be used both before and after war. They can be used in both contexts. And allies in this context here normally is for countries, but it can be used also for groups of people that are together against a third party, together against a common enemy, so to speak. Armistice can also be used both before and after war. Armistice is a temporary arrangement for stop fighting. Armistices are generally when two countries settle before two countries or two factions, they will decide to stop the conflict to start peace conversations, okay? So armistices are normally temporary. They are not everlasting. They are temporary. Some are very long, but nevertheless, they are temporary. Battle can be used during war, and it is an expression that indicates a specific uh, combat, not necessarily one day. Some battles are known to have lasted weeks, but it's the name that is given to this specific confrontation, okay? Ceasefire. Ceasefire is also used during war, and it is a agreement to stop the fighting. It's different from the armistice for some reasons. First, because it's not necessarily between the two countries or many countries. The ceasefire can be agreed between the officers in a battleground or something, and they are not necessarily intended for peace conversation. You can have a ceasefire because of uh, religious holiday. You can have a ceasefire because of to take care of people who are hurt. It has happened. There is a very famous one that occurred in the middle of the First World War, that was near Christmas, when all over Europe there were ceasefires and people from different armies got together to celebrate Christmas. It's a very interesting story. Conflict, something that comes before war. War itself is a conflict, okay, but it is this disagreement that cannot be solved by diplomatic means. Crisis. The crisis is normally the escalation of a conflict. So you have this disagreement and it gets worse and worse and becomes a crisis. I'm talking, remember, on this context, okay? Crisis in other contexts can mean different things. But here, talking about war, crisis is an escalation, is when the conflict gets bigger and worse. Defeat is to beat your enemy, to cease his will to continue the fight, to defeat. Diplomacy comes after war, so to make all the arrangements, make everybody happy after conflict has finished. Disarmament is that period after wars when countries get into an agreement to get rid of all their machinery intended to fight. Because if you think about it, it's quite a lot of guns and not only guns, but tanks and all these things. And a lot of times the losing parties, the losing countries will have to go through a very strong disarmament program. It happened to Japan after the Second World War, where even the population were not allowed to have guns, okay? The downfall is the complete and utter loss of something. So it's when somebody or a country or a society is destroyed. The downfall is the loss of power, of social position, of means, economic means. So it is a little bit worse than the defeat. Defeat is used for more isolated situation. The downfall is something deeper. Exile, you can find also exile with a, but exile is can be a verb or can be a person, a noun. When it is a verb, is the act of throwing somebody away from a country, a society, due to the crimes committed. Generally, exile is for crimes committed against political order, okay? Or an exile can also be a person, which is the person who was expelled or sent, cast away from the society. There's also self-exiles. In this case, it's called more like asylum. People who ask for asylum, that is, ask for another country to receive you because you are in danger in your original country, okay? Invasion is to enter a territory, to enter another country by the means of force, to conquer an area. Refugees is something we discussed today a lot, are the people, the populations that are displaced and sent away from home due to conflicts, okay? We think a lot about this when we think of Syria now, for example, but it can happen in smaller conflicts as well. A revolution is a drastic and dramatic change in the social and political order that comes about via conflict. Okay, so there is this conflict that changes social and political order, and that's a revolution. Sanction. A sanction can be different things. When applied here, a sanction is an official order to stop commerce, to stop trading of goods or information, and it's generally applied upon a losing country. One example that comes to mind for me now is the sanction that was applied from the United States upon Cuba after the revolution. Yes, after the revolution. Okay, so they made difficult or prohibited all exchange to Cuba from allied countries, and that's a sanction, okay? And treaty is also something that comes after wars or can come before wars too. That is a political agreement between two countries, two powers, two or more political powers, and it's the officialization of conversations and a lot of I forgot the word now. Negotiations between the two countries, okay? There is one, I think, Brazilian students, and I believe Alicia too have heard of it, that is the Tordesilhas Treaty. That is a treaty that divided all the unknown lands between Portugal and Spain. That's a treaty. That's an agreement between the two countries, okay? I'm giving you the definitions and the correction, but always remember to look them up in the dictionary, okay, guys? It's a good way for you to increase your vocabulary. So here we have some headlines. The headline is that big sentence that comes before an article on the newspaper or magazines or a website. So it is made to get the attention of the reader. It is in big bold letters to call the attention, and it's generally a very catchy, attractive summary of the ideas you will find in the text. So we have UN, that is the United Nations, the organization, calls for economic sanctions. To call for is to ask for, okay, to require. Refugee crisis coming to an end, it's ending. New ceasefire between Israelis and Palestinians. Nuclear disarmament talks reopen. So talks, in this case, and you are going to find it in English a lot, is like an official conversation between the diplomatic apparels of two or more different countries. So talks, peace talks, disarmament talks, so are conversations between diplomats from different countries or organizations. And corruption charges are acusações, but in a more legal way, okay? So when somebody is, I don't remember the word in Portuguese. No, it's acusado de fato, quando inicia processo, okay? So corruption charges bring about causes. To bring about is to cause president's downfall, the ruin, the loss of power of a president, okay? So that's it. There is a speaking challenge here that I normally transform into what's the name of that? A writing, but this one I want you to change into an audio. So you are going to choose, I have here some paragraphs. You are going to choose one, read it, and give your point of view in an audio. Send me the audio. You can send it on the group if it's okay for you, or you can send to me privately, okay? I'm opening the paragraphs. You can pause, and then you will get them, okay? In 1882, the U.S. Congress, U.S. United States, passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, which prohibited Chinese immigration to the United States. The act, acting in American law, is like it's not a medida provisória, it's something, it's a kind of a law, uma lei. The act resulted from economic and cultural tensions as well as ethnic discrimination. A group of Americans believed that Chinese immigrants were responsible for declining wages and lower cultural and moral standards. Or you can choose paragraph B. Let's see if I can get this too close here. The First Amendment to the American Constitution guarantees freedom of speech, which is the right to express yourself without having to worry about government interference. However, not all types of speech are protected. For instance, one has the right to protest the government even by burning the flag, but cannot make or distribute obscene materials. Okay? So I will not talk about this so as not to influence you, but I wait for your audience. And going on, let's go, my friend, close. Oh my God, I cannot. Okay, so it's me. It's never the machine, it's always the operator. So now let's go for the exercises. I thought that would be a lot of passive voice on these exercises, but they are actually not. So to not confuse you, I will not make passive explanations now. This is more about if clauses, and about if clauses you already have material on the group. If it's not there, let me know and I will send it to you again, okay? So this first is about, what's the name? Vocabulary. Okay, so you're going to match. If you throw a ball up, it's, I'm trying to change this position. It comes back. If you throw a ball up, it comes back to earth. Gravity tells us that. Karen's not here, but I'm sure she would be if she could. If she could. Jack could have been elected president if he hadn't been involved in that corruption scandal. They would have called for economic sanctions if they thought, if they considered it was necessary. So thought here is the past of the verb think. Okay, thought is the past of think. He would be in exile now if the political situation hadn't changed. 6, the monument would have fallen into pieces if there hadn't been an effort to preserve it. See, this is a third conditional, okay? A lot of accidents would have been avoided if the roads were in best conditions, okay? And 8, if there is a revolution, leave the country. It's your own, it's for your own safety. This is a lot of conditional sentences, okay? So this is to test your knowledge on that. You already have material on this. So, okay, just go there and review it. Let's go for the next. Better. Here, you are going to answer the questions, and these are personal, so I cannot correct them. Please, when you do, you send me a picture, or you can answer them on your cell phone, and I will send you the corrections, okay? Because these I cannot correct here. You're not interested in my opinion. And here's the same. Using the conditional sentences, you are going to answer these questions. So I wouldn't have if. This is third conditional. I wouldn't have moved to Bahia if I hadn't found a job here. Okay? Let's go ahead to stop here for a while. So I paused the thing. Let's go back. Oh my God, what have I done here? I have made some mistakes here. So here we have a text. It's about the Greek and Trojan War between Greeks and Trojans. Very interesting story, mythology around it, a lot of very interesting stuff. And now the passage is about the Trojan horse. The Trojan horse was made of wood. It was big but not solid. It was hollow, so the Greeks could enter. And it was not built by the Trojans. It was built by the Greeks and given the Trojans, okay? The war might not have happened according to the story, to the myth, if Helen weren't married. True, if she was not married to Agamemnon, she would have been able to marry Paris and everything would be fine. Paris hadn't chosen Aphrodite, also true, because he did it to get Helen, and that's what gets things started. Helen, Athena, and Aphrodite had shared the apple. True, there will not be a reason for conflict, so all the alternatives are correct. And the meaning of the fairest in the passage is the one with the best looks. Be careful with this expression, the fairest, because it is being discussed now as, not now, but for a while, as a little bit racist. Because fair in English is justo and is also claro. So fair hair means cabelo claro, and that's the original idea. That's the origin of the expression fair. Fair was used to designate things that are light in color, skin, hair, and many other things. And then it was extrapolated as it usually happens, for positive meanings. So being fair, being justo, and being fair, being beautiful. I don't use this. I recommend you don't as well, because it comes across, I wouldn't say racist, but it certainly does not do anything to increase Black population's self-esteem. And if it's not racist, it's at least debatable, okay? Sometimes we tend to look at this expression and say, oh, but it's such a big fuss, this is nothing. But we know that words have power. And when you say that a woman is beautiful because she's fair, you are of course saying that women that are not fair are not as beautiful. So be aware of what you say, okay? Bye-bye, guys. Do your exercises.